Live from Union University Carl Grant
on.
Center, this is the City of Jackson Mayoral Candidates Forum, brought to you by E+ Broadband, Jackson Energy Authority. Tonight, candidates for mayor discuss important issues for the City of Jackson. Now your moderator, Steve Beverly.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Steve Beverly, and West Tennessee Today and Union University welcome you to a forum that we call Who Wants to Be Mayor? We're pleased to have those of you watching on E+ TV6, eplusTV6.com, and West Tennessee Today, and those of you listening on 93.1. 5 weeks ago, a field of 5 candidates for mayor of Jackson narrowed down to 2 for a runoff. Early voting has been in progress since late May. 1 week from today, for those of you watching us live, the official runoff election will determine who will lead the hub city of West Tennessee into the next decade. Tonight, we are pleased to welcome live the 2 finalists for that runoff. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Conger and Jerry Woods. Gentlemen, congratulations on reaching what we would say, if it was a sports analogy, the finals of the most important elimination tournament in city government. In this hour, we hope to learn more about their vision and how they intend to put it into a plan for our city. For our audience, let me briefly cover the ground rules. Each candidate will make an opening statement for a maximum of 1 minute. We will then go to a series of questions that have been developed by people from media, business, and education, and from neighborhood life in Jackson. We'll get to as many questions as we have time for in 1 hour. Each candidate will have a maximum of 90 seconds to respond, and they will do so in a rotating order. At the end of our forum, each candidate will present a 1-minute closing statement. We do ask for our audience in the Carl Grant Event Center to refrain from any applause or other open form of reaction during the questions and responses. Now, you at home can do as you choose. But a final note, the candidates have not been provided with any of the questions in advance of tonight's forum. We did flip a coin to determine who would do the first opening statement. Dr. Woods won, and so we will begin with Dr. Jerry Woods.
Good evening to everyone. Hello, I'm Jerry Woods, and I want to be your next mayor. I'm running for mayor to make a good city better support for our schools and public services, better and more livable neighborhoods, and a better economy. I bring the background, the qualifications, but more importantly, the desire to have the moral compass to be the servant leader of Jackson, Tennessee. I ask you for your vote and support as we move Jackson forward together. Hopefully this evening in our conversation, both of us will be able to lay out our plans to see what we want to do to make a good city better. Again, thank you so much for your attendance tonight, and I look forward to spending the rest of this presentation or this televised segment with each of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. And now, Scott Conger.
Thanks, Steve. I want to thank Union University for hosting us tonight, JEA and West Tennessee Today for putting on this forum, and thank all of you for being here and those of you watching at home. 6 generations ago, my family came to Jackson. Since then, we've been part of the very fabric that is Jackson, Tennessee. Now we have an election in front of us. And I think this election is important because not only are we electing a mayor for today, but we're electing a mayor to lay out the plan and lay out the path for the next 20 years. I have 2 small kids, 3 and 1, and one of the reasons that I'm running for mayor is because I want to help create a city that when they graduate high school and college, they come back to Jackson or they stay in Jackson, not because mom and dad are here, but because it makes sense, because they have opportunities, because they have roots here, and they're able to either start their business or start a career that they choose here because those options are in Jackson. Those decisions are made today. That groundwork and foundation is laid today, as I look forward to discussing that with you over the next hour.
Thank you, Mr. Conger. So, gentlemen, if you're ready, we'll get right to the questions. Since Dr. Woods did the first opening statement, we'll begin with Mr. Conger, but each question will be asked of both candidates. Our first question: leaders develop and consistently communicate a vision for the future. Describe what you hope living and working in Jackson will be like for the average citizen into the next decade. Scott?
So it's interesting, my wife is a stay-at-home mom now, was a teacher for 6 years and taught elementary school. So you can imagine my house is an elementary school classroom. They let me sleep there, which I'm grateful for. I was looking the other day, we have a map of the United States on our wall. And my daughter, who's 3, goes and points out where Memphis is in Nashville. We ask her where Jackson is, and she has to kind of point where the N is on Tennessee. And you look at I-40. And so I think for Jackson, quality of life, better aesthetics, and make those opportunities and do the things that we need to do to make sure that Jackson, there's a dot on the map, that we put Jackson on the map, that it's not just a stopping point between Memphis and Nashville, but it's actually a destination point. That we capitalize on our tourism, we capitalize on our regional draw, the infrastructure that we have and that we're going to replace and maintain and repair, everything that we have going for us, all the workforce, making sure that we are making Jackson the best it can be, and we're going to put it on the map and make sure that people all over the country know about Jackson, Tennessee.
All right. Dr. Woods.
My vision for Jackson, Tennessee, those of us who've been around for a while will remember in the mid-'60s, we had a theme here in Jackson. It was said, let Big J lead the way. I don't know if anybody know that from way back, but certainly my vision for Jackson is Jackson will continue to lead the way, not only as the hub of West Tennessee, but as one of the principal cities in Tennessee. I see the vision of Jackson to be a more inclusive city, a more diverse city, and certainly a more progressive city. It will take the works and efforts first of the mayor, but everyone in this room plus others to move this city forward. I also visualize a Jackson that will be there that we can hand off to our children. Our children can live in a safer neighborhood, a more quality neighborhood, and a more progressive city. Lastly, I see Jackson to live out of the creed and the mission that we already have: service, service, service. And so I think that we can give the best. I see Jackson as being that city that gives the highest amount or highest degree of service to all of its citizens who are fortunate enough to live within the city limits of our fine Jackson, Tennessee.
Our next question comes from a retired businessman in our community. Education is one of the most critical elements for the future of Jackson. Although the city is no longer responsible for decisions as a governing body related to public education, we cannot avoid the impact it has had on every facet of our community. Tell us how you will work to overcome the limitations the future mayor may have related to educating Jackson's children. We'll start with Dr. Woods.
First, as a 3-time school superintendent, plus an executive vice president at a college, plus a college administrator, I certainly believe in the transformative power of education. As mayor, there are a couple of things that I want to do. The first thing I want to do is to name a public school liaison. Not a new position within the budget, but repurpose our funds to name a public school liaison. That public school liaison will be a conduit or conversation conduit between the Jackson-Madison County School Board and the City of Jackson. There's no way, my friends, that we can say we're not in school business, because we have boys and girls that we have to make an impact on their lives every day. In addition to that liaison, that will fall under the area of youth services. I want to increase more after school, before and after care, and also want a stronger emphasis on mentoring. We're the ones today, but the young people that we serve will be the leaders on tomorrow. The decisions we make today in education certainly will impact what we do in the future. So I want to be an educator. I want to be a progressive mayor, but certainly an education mayor, because we want to move all of our young people forward in that way. Thank you very much.
Mr. Conger.
So on paper, the city of Jackson isn't in the school business. But in reality, the city of Jackson's in the economic development business. And that's a key piece in economic development is education. And my day job is at United Way of West Tennessee. We serve 14 counties across the region. When I took the job 4 years ago, you went and talked to plant managers and CEOs all across our 14 counties, and it was pass a drug test, show up on time, and have a skill. Fast forward 4 years, it's pass a drug test, show up on time, and just be trainable. So we have to make that investment in economic development and workforce development. I think you go back from 2017, that was the first time that the city was able to be at the table and talk about paths forward for education. We have an opportunity now with a public-private partnership to make sure that we're going to build 3 new schools. We're going to have a new academic school, a new JCM, all-inclusive campus. Those are opportunities that the city can have. The city mayor's role, I think, is to be a partner with the superintendent, to walk alongside the superintendent, whoever that person may be in the end, to make sure that the city is doing everything in its power to empower our superintendent to follow their lead, his or her direction, and make sure that we can plug in and add value where it makes sense.
Our next question, fairly simple, but we will start with Mr. Conger. If you are elected, what would the first 90 days of your mayoral role entail?
So if you go to our website, scottconger.com, shameless plug, we have a 30-day plan. There's a lot of things that we want to start tackling and start implementing. I think first and foremost is looking at the budget that we're going to have. The City Council passed a budget that's pretty much a carbon copy from this year for next year, and looking at ways to come in our budget, make sure our finances and our expenditures come in order, implementing a real legitimate budget review committee to make those recommendations and start on the next budget for next year. Far too long, we started the budget process from January, February to May. We need to make sure that's a year-round process. So we're looking at how we can reduce costs, how we can look at our revenues, and start planning for the future. And then implementing 10-year plans, making sure that we know what our capital needs are, all the way from street resurfacing to sidewalks, police cars, fire trucks, buildings, IT infrastructure, making sure that we're having a plan on those replacements. And once we do those things and focus everything strength-based assessments, making sure we have the right people in the right places, and everything drives from efficiency, transparency, and inclusivity. We take care of those 3 things from day one, everything else will fall in place.
Dr. Woods.
Learning, and listening for those days as we go through the process. Specifically, what I want to do is that we want to meet with each department head. I've met with some just by phone, but want to meet with each department head, and we have a mission statement already for the city of Jackson. I want to meet with every department head. I want to review that, give that out to them so they can give it to all of their employees in their department. You have a mission statement for a reason. You have a mission statement for a reason, and we want to focus on that. Secondly, as Scott said, we know the capital budget is very, very important. Want to meet with those department heads and have them to look at a realistic way of basically, ladies and gentlemen, being able to get into the mindset, get into the practice of doing more with less, doing more with less, doing more with less. When I say doing more with less, Jackson is too progressive of a city to cut services, so we've got to be very creative. We've got to be very, very creative of being able to pull in some additional funds, but we want to do more with less. So let's meet with department heads so we can refocus on what we're doing. Let's look at this capital budget and then continue to visit, to listen and learn, and to learn as much about the departments to be the best servant leader mayor that Jackson has ever had.
Our next question will start with Dr. Woods. In a recent meeting of elected officials that was carried live by West Tennessee Today, a veteran county commissioner said a group of commissioners have been told that the city of Jackson's finances are significantly worse than the picture that is being presented. If you are elected, what will you do to investigate whether that is true? And if it is true, how would you attempt to address it?
In order to investigate, I truly believe that truth stands above all. Integrity stands above all. If this is not a gotcha game, I will find out clearly what that situation is. But more importantly, we must inform the public, regardless of what the situation is. When we inform the individuals, that lets us know where our baseline is. If it's terrible, it is terrible. However, this is where we are now, and this is where we need to be. We will point out what we need to do to go forward. I don't think it should be a situation to where there's a finger pointing or negative, inflammatory toward the current administration or the past administration. But we do want to find that, because I think, again, if we leave things to assumption, individuals are able to fill in the blank, and sometimes they fill in the blank. That's not the truth. So we will get to the bottom of that, but more importantly, let you know as citizens what that situation is, and let's shed light on it and see what we can do, sit at the table to move forward together.
Mr. Conger.
I can't imagine you have rumors in a campaign. It's a crazy thought. But one thing we talked about and you've heard during the campaign is $100 million in debt. Reality is we're about $75 million with a principal. You look at amortization, that's $87 million. So that's $13 million, while in the grand scheme of $100 million, it's not a big number, but it's a big number. We have a $73 million debt. I think there are ways that we can do that. I don't think the picture is as bleak as some would like to paint it, but there are some challenges. There are also some opportunities that we need to take. Looking at refunding our 2009 debt to bring their interest rate down, stretch out those payments, and reduce those balloon debts is a great first step to get our house in financial order. And making sure that we're looking at those that are through natural attrition, those who are retiring on their own free will, how we replace those. Can we implement technology? Can we make sure and consolidate some of those positions? 2013, I was on the council. I looked at some technology for 311. At that time, it was $12,000 a year to maintain. If we have 2 people answering the phone right now, they're getting salaries, benefits, retirement, vacation. That's roughly $90,000. So as they make that transition, not pushing anyone out, but as they make the transition and we implement technology in those places, that's just one area of savings. Driving efficiency, everywhere that we look, we can bring that financial picture into a much better light.
Our next question comes from one of the city's younger managers. The question is this, and we'll start with Mr. Conger. We've heard over and over about how our brightest and best leave Jackson to pursue their adult careers. What specifics do you plan to entice our collegiate population to set down roots in our community, including incorporating 20-somethings into community boards and spheres of influence?
I think that answered the question right there. Include them in boards and spheres of influence to start out. We have 2 demographics that leave. Those demographics are those who are graduating high school and go off to college and never return. And then those who are coming here to campuses like Union, getting their education, and then going back home or going somewhere else because there's opportunities. We have a fantastic fiber network. We have a great entrepreneur center. We can expand that into City Hall with a 3,000 square feet that has not been developed yet. My cousin, for example, is a back-end developer for Google, lives in Boulder, Colorado, and every time he comes to visit our grandmother, he just raves about our residential internet. We have the infrastructure. We have the means to be able to capitalize on those 21st century jobs. We just have to do so. He says in Boulder, Colorado, on the Google campus, obviously they have the best internet money can buy, but when he goes home, it's a step above dial-up. And so he can't do any of his work at home, but he could do his work at home in Jackson, Tennessee. And so we need to make sure that we're telling people about the great things that we have, that we're encouraging and we're inspiring entrepreneurs to make sure and make their stop here, plant their home, and then encouraging the best and the brightest to get involved, whether that's through a leadership, I want to say university, we already have that at the high school level, but bring the university students into a leadership Jackson mentality, make sure they know what's going on and get out of the bubble of their campus.
Dr. Woods.
Steve, excuse me. I went to several conferences, but I went to a small, it was a cities and towns conference, and one of the key, one of the key areas it said that many of our towns and cities do a great job of educating and training our young people to go somewhere else. And what we want to do, we want to train them, but we want to provide opportunities as we said. But ladies and gentlemen, not only we want to provide opportunities for young people to come back to Jackson, but it is so important too that these young people are provided an opportunity where they feel that they've got equity and they've had an equal fair share or a fair chance at filling local jobs. And I think that's one of the things we want to make sure, not only that we have jobs, but that as these young people, as our graduates come back to Jackson, we've prepared them. And if they went to school here, that's fine. However, we want them to come back to Jackson. And lastly, we need to work even more. We had a millennial meeting on last week on some amenities that some of our young people have, but we can provide the jobs, but make sure it's fair and equitable, and that all of our young people feel that they've had a fair share in the filling of these positions.
This question will start with Dr. Woods, and it came from both a younger resident and from a business leader in our community. They asked similar questions. What value do you see in adding features to our city to promote healthy outdoor living, and what is your plan to add to and improve existing features?
I see great value in that area. Of course, we know that we have some available spaces, and we've talked about this in other in other forums, but want to increase the green spaces that we have. I think also that we need to look at, when we look at livability areas and we look at livability features, there are some livability features. We have individuals who say, well, you know, we need some more sidewalks, we need some more dog tracks. Those things are so very, very important. But also we've got to look at a balance there, because some livability issues is say that I really need my home to be more livable. I need to live in a home where the roof is, you know, where the roof is not leaking, all those type things. But certainly I'm in favor of those livability issues. I think that we have some great things already going on in Jackson, but I want us to work harder at spreading some of those in other areas that have even a greater need. As far as, like say, you know, as far as the livability, we certainly need our walks, we certainly need our parks, we certainly need all the things that measure recreation, that measure greater quality of life. As mayor, I will always push forward for a greater and positive quality of life for all the citizens of Jackson, Tennessee.
Mr. Conger.
So walkability, connectivity, I mean, that's the key to any city. You know, we have people moving back to the downtown area because they want to walk. They want to walk to work. They want to walk to go to the grocery store. They want to walk home and walk for their entertainment. You know, we're doing things already in Jackson, working with the Tennessee River Basin Authority to connect Bemis all the way to North Jackson, a three-way, with greenways, bike trails, kayaking, making sure that we're having that connectivity and increasing walkability, I think, is key. We have healthier communities. We have people that are getting out and exercising. They're reducing their health care costs. They're healthier. They're showing up to work more, so it's not costing the companies as much. That allows for more job expansion. It's just a holistic, healthy picture for everyone, for the economy, for the individual. And so we have to focus on that as we build roads, as we develop neighborhoods, to make sure that we're focused on walkability. You know, back in the neighborhoods that were developed, 20 years ago, had the slope curbs, slightly wider streets with the idea of increasing walkability. Unintended consequence is that someone behind a wheel sees a wider street, they drive faster. And so walkability doesn't really enhance there. We got to make sure we have sidewalks and have avenues for people to get healthy and get out and exercise.
We'll begin this next question with Mr. Conger, and this one came from one of our women viewers. I'm very interested in the plans that you have for the Jackson Police Department. With the improvements made under the leadership of Chief Julian Weiser, will you retain him, and how will you evaluate other department heads? Start with Mr. Conger.
Absolutely. You look at the last 4 years that Chief Weiser has been in place, and we've seen our overall crime reduce double-digit percentages. I mean, you can't argue those numbers. We have to have metrics. Everything has to be measurable. Right now, I have a staff of 5 that I work with. We serve 14 counties, like I said, and we have measurables every year that they have to report on, and I know what success looks like. So every department has different measurables, what that looks like, what success is, how we're using our dollars, and making sure that everything that we're doing is data-driven. Everything in our city government needs to be data-driven, and those decisions need to be made based on data, not based on relationships or someone's longtime friend. They have to make sure that we're making the best decisions for the benefit of all of Jackson and using data to make those decisions.
Dr.
Steve,
Woods.
do you mind repeating that question?
I'll repeat the
please?
question again. I'm very interested in the plans for the Jackson Police Department. With the improvements made under the leadership of Chief Julian Weiser, will you retain him, and how will you evaluate other department heads?
Presently, my plans are to retain every department head that is in the city of Jackson presently. I've spoken with Chief Weiser as well as other members of the Jackson Police Department. As far as the evaluation is concerned, we want to continue crime. We want to continue safety and security are number one because, of course, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, our basic self-protection is most important. So certainly we do want to keep all of our department heads, as certainly when we come in July 1. As far as evaluations, we want to look at those because, again, I want to find out exactly how that evaluation is done. I know how I do evaluations, and I will do it in the process that I've done it with department heads. But certainly we want to move forward. This would not be a good time at all in a situation to make a transfer of anybody, especially the first responders, because we want to be able to make everyone that's in this listening audience that I'm looking at, as well as those out in TV land, to know that it's important that we have all this in place and that you can feel safe, secure in the city of Jackson, Tennessee.
Our next question will start with Dr. Woods, and this is one that came from a veteran journalist, but not me, although I could have easily asked this one. We live in an era where jobs and economic development are driven by and defined by technology. How do you see the city of Jackson responding to these technology demands? What will you do as mayor to ensure the city continues to be technologically competitive?
Excellent question. I will continue to support what we're already doing. Of course, we know we've got the code and so many other things on technology. Technology is the way. Certainly, it can save. It saves time. It saves money. But more importantly, it's productive. Now, I think it's also important, though, that technology, whether it's a school, a city, or a town, can never replace human interaction. I don't ever want it to replace, I don't want any form of technology to replace human interaction, because human interaction is the key. However, I think technology is an excellent tool for greater efficiency, to move things forward, and I will support that. Also want to just see exactly, because as we listen and learn, see exactly how we are currently using technology within the city, and just try to look at more efficient ways, look at cities of our size, see how they're using efficiency, using technology. But again, I repeat, in no way do I feel that we want technology to totally replace human interaction, because human interaction is the way. A city is only buildings and shells and facades of buildings if they're not people.
Mr. Conger.
Oh, so yeah, technology, I mean, we're in the 21st century. We still operate a government that's virtually paper-based. We can do things, and like I said, everything that we're going to do is drive efficiency and reduce costs. When I started at United Way 4 years ago, paper-based. People were bringing in stacks of paper, and we have to ask the question, why? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing things the way that we're doing? And if the answer is we've always done it this way, then that's the wrong answer. We have to make sure that we're going to drive technology, we're going to be efficient, and make sure that everything that we're doing is two things: data-driven and making sure that we're improving the customer service experience in everything that we do. Every one of us in here has a smartphone. Every one of us in here downloads apps. We can do things and utilize technology to make that customer service experience better, make our departments run more efficient, to know where our city trucks are, to know where our service vehicles are, reduce fuel costs, extend the life of our vehicles, and have savings all over the board.
Our next question comes from our good friends from the Jackson Sun, who happen to be in the building tonight. We'll start with Mr. Conger. What do you know about the city's needs now that you didn't know when you declared your candidacy? And has it shifted your stance on any of these issues in this campaign?
So I'm a student, and I research and study, and 6.5 years on the city council gave me a lot of insight into how city government works and how it doesn't work. I think the thing that I've learned the most, not specifically the city government itself, but the people. Meeting people across all walks of life in every neighborhood, the dreams that they have, the way that they see Jackson, and knowing that if elected mayor, that you're responsible not only for 68,000 people that live here, but you're responsible for the additional 60,000, 70,000 people that come here every single day, that are going to shop, that are going to work, that are going to sit at our restaurants. It's a huge responsibility. And so thinking through that lens of big picture, knowing that when people call, when there are issues, that there may be some things that you might not think are on the radar, but in the big picture of Jackson, all those things make it work. And it's like a well-oiled machine. You have to make sure you take care of the little things, do them well, and make sure that you're keeping the big picture in mind and spinning about 15 different plates at the same time. Dr. Woods.
I've learned quite a bit, certainly from after announcing, I've taken a lot of time, worked with the advisor of the campaign to study the city charter. Of course, we know some of the things there, but after you study it and look at some of the ordinances, you learn a great deal about that. Secondly, I have learned, too, that everyone, so many people from diverse backgrounds, have desires, have needs that are so unique. However, there are so many commonalities. I found that Jacksonians, regardless of where they live, want a higher quality of life. Everybody doesn't want to move to another place. I've learned that individuals may love where they are, but they do want a higher quality of life. And lastly, I've just learned that, through campaigning, it's amazing. It's really amazing that when you look at individuals and some of the questions they ask you, and they will ask you right off, well, what are you going to do for Jackson? What is your platform? Or they may not use the word platform, but I've learned that we have a very informed populace, if not an informed populace, a populace who wants to be informed, who wants to look within your leadership, and it causes me to even step up closer to the plate to say, I'm going to lead these people, going to lead them with integrity because they expect it, and that's one of the several of the things I've learned since we started this process.
Our next question will start with Dr. Woods, and this is more specific about a facility in Jackson. Ullman Arena is more than 50 years old. It no longer attracts major music or athletic events. Yet, Tupelo, Mississippi, a city with a population of only 38,000, has the 10,000-seat Bancorp South Arena. How can we work to creatively finance a new arena that perhaps is combined with a conference center? Dr. Woods.
Well, that question has been bounced, not necessarily in forums, but just in individuals I've spoken with. Certainly, we have to look at the source of funding for that. I'm not against a new convention center. I think we did, and I'm sure Scott, or some of the may remember, but I think we did a feasibility study of the Coliseum. Of course, when it was built in our day, oh gosh, it was Colossus. It really just was a fine building. And certainly, I think that we look at the cost of what it would be to upgrade it, the sound, all those type things would be a challenge. So what I would like to do, my thoughts on the convention center in the future, I certainly would be open to that. I know because of Jackson being as progressive as it is, we can host large conventions. We've seen that, just what we've done with the ballpark area. So I would support looking at the building of a convention center only after we make sure we've done our homework, look at those feasibility studies and see is it really the right thing for Jackson. Certainly, I think the revenue would be there. We'd have to do a lot of hard work, but I would not totally be against moving forward with a convention center.
Mr. Conger.
So yeah, I mean, the Coliseum, the structure itself can't hold the sound equipment that modern day concerts have. And so that's a challenge. Back in 1997, 98, Bancorp South Arena was intended for Jackson. We couldn't agree on how to pay for it, so Tupelo said, we'll take that. And I think they've done pretty well since they got it. We have a lot of priorities, and I think that a convention center and arena, something to add to our quality of life, is up there, but I don't know if it's quite at the top. Someone told me we had potholes in Jackson. I don't know if y'all seen any. I don't know. So we have infrastructure we need to take care of. We have a stormwater we need to take care of. We have some leveling up in some of our departments. We got to look at new vehicles, new fire trucks, personnel raises, all across the board, the spectrum of what the needs are. I think right now that a convention center is more of a want than a need. I think we'll get to a need. Feasibility study says it's supposed to be downtown. And then ballpark is the next place if there's not enough room downtown. So I think it'd be a great addition to the city. We got to make sure that financially that we're in a good spot to be able to fund that or to be able to take on the bonds to be able to pay for that.
Our next question comes from another of our women viewers. Many cities, and we'll start with Mr. Conger on this one, many cities, including some in this state that are smaller than Jackson, have municipally funded weekly recycling pickups, just as they do with garbage collection. Where do you stand on the possibility of a regularly scheduled recycling pickup to improve the environment of our community?
Yeah, so I think it's a great possibility and a great opportunity. Next year, 2020, is the end of the 5-year contract with Waste Management. They start 1-year renewals for 5 years after that. And so what that means is there's an opportunity to negotiate, to look at what the contract is, how can we move forward. I think there's an opportunity to look at recycling. And that may change trash pickup. It may change it to once a week curbside pickup, may change it twice a week curbside pickup, whatever it may do. But the options are there if we have enough support to do it, if there's enough buy-in from the community. And that goes back to the communication piece. When the plan's coming down, communicating on the front end instead of being reactive and answering questions, talk about the plan, talk about the vision of what we're going to do, make sure that we have the buy-in from the community, and at the very least that our city understands what the plans are and how we're going to move forward.
Dr. Woods.
I certainly would support that process. I think it's very important too, and one of the reasons I say on the recycling, I think it will continue or get us in the mindset of recycling. You know, pretty much in a lot of our homes, we do it. We recycle. We did at the college. We continue to do that. But I think that pickup would cause us to even be more apt to do that. So certainly, it helps our environment. It helps, clean air. It helps all of that. And then I think also you think about, I go back again to our children. This is something that, someone starting this year or a young person say, well, starting with young people, if we do that pickup, that'll become a way of life for them too. They'll see that, and hopefully we will be able to move forward into future generations, and we'll have a cleaner, more environmental friendly atmosphere or conditions for everyone.
Dr. Woods, we'll start this next question with you, and we had 3 different individuals who posed a question that we've tried to combine together into one. The city has no governing authority on the Jackson-Madison County school system's budget, but if enough of the population supported a central athletic complex for the district that included a turf field for football and soccer and track and field facilities, would you give funding for that initiative a serious look if the school district would use it?
I would give funding a serious look.
All right. Scott.
That goes back to what I said earlier of what we have with the public-private partnerships, of the city plugging in where it makes sense. We've missed out on spring fling for several years because we don't have the facilities for that. We don't have a certified track for our public school system. And so we get beyond this initial public-private partnership of building schools, and that's an option that the next superintendent thinks is going to be viable and valuable to our city and our school system. I think there's nothing off the table on how we can plug in and how we can add value and work alongside our school system and our county government to make sure that we're investing in our kids. They know that they're being invested in, and they know that we value their education and their athletic education as well.
All right, Scott, we'll start with you this time, and this is a question that has come from more of our journalists here in our community. What is the aspect
Y'all
about...
get together and ask questions?
Not this time. Okay. What is the aspect about this campaign that's frustrated you the most?
Everything's been great, right? It's been a great campaign. I think we're in a big little town. I think the aspect that's frustrated me the most is we started back in March before we even thought about running for mayor, and just wanted to educate people, wanted to get people involved, doing social media channels that talk about how city government works, talking about ideas that we can do as a city, and then progressing that into a campaign, and still knowing the accessibility that I had as a city councilman, knowing the accessibility that I have through all my social media, through my personal cell phone being published on every platform you can possibly imagine, and then hearing rumors of things that you said or the things that you plan to do if elected that no one's coming and asking you about. And so, I wish that we could get past that of the rumor mill and actually have conversations about visions and plans and really know what the other person's talking about. And so much can be accomplished through just having a conversation and not letting rumors take over things.
Dr. Woods.
I would say that probably in the campaign that the area that has frustrated me the most is that when I run across, or when we've come across individuals who have just said clearly they're not going to participate in the voter process. And that is, to me, that is just, that really, regardless to who's running, regardless who wins, who doesn't win. That is such an opportunity that so many individuals that were denied. There were so many individuals through history that lost their lives, but that had some major challenges. So it was frustrating. Not that I was really mad at the individuals, but to be able to see there was the one of the quotes from the Jackson, I mean not from Jackson, from the commercial appeal says, "Give the people light, and they'll find their own way." And I think that to give the individuals the importance of saying that you need to do this, not for Jerry, not just for Jerry Woods, but it's a process that goes totally beyond any candidate. But that was frustrating for individuals who just said, I'm not going to vote. I don't do this. I don't want to do this. So that was frustrating. But we're moving forward on that area. But it was just that was frustrating to me to say that, oh, man, so much has been given, blood, sweat, and tears, and for a person who chooses not to do that certainly was frustrating to me in this process.
Next question, we'll start with Dr. Woods. How will you, as a new mayor, this is for both candidates, how will you, as a new mayor, work with a new city council with 4 new members to avoid the kind of turbulence we have seen on the Jackson-Madison County School Board?
First, communication, recognizing and realizing what our roles are. I think from time to time, we use the term staying in our lane. We use the term of understanding. So I think if we recognize the role of the mayor as well as the role of the city council and staying in those lanes, mutual respect, knowing that and I will reach out. I'm a reaching out person. While I do memos and while I do texts and all that, I really like to speak with the person on a personal basis. And I think just realizing those roles, explaining those roles clearly, but more importantly, respecting those roles that everybody has to play. That's one of the things. Then secondly, with the new board members, I'm sure Councilman Dodd or Councilman Conger will know that I'm sure we do some form of orientation. If they don't, we'll do one of that. And lastly, one thing I want to do on the agenda, I want to add periodically on the school board agenda on the city council agenda, a report from the various councilmen. Maybe first we may do 1 or 2, just an update on that, because I think that keeps them involved. They have to meet with their people, and we can come back and report that. But certainly understanding, staying in our lane will be the way we'll look at that.
Mr. Conger.
So having the opportunity to serve on the council for 6.5 years, I have a relationship with 4 of them. And so in my personal opinion, and I hope that all the council members that are no longer on the council have already voted, coming in, we got the best council, I think, possibly that we've ever had. And you look at the people that are on the council that are there for the right reasons. Those who have been on the council, the 4 that are coming in have 20 years experience each. Then you have 1 council member who has a little over 2 years experience, and then you have 4 brand new council members. So it's a lot of different perspectives and a lot of ways to get out of the road of the way that we've always done things. I'm not elected, so I can meet with council members one-on-one. And so I've been talking with council members, having those conversations, kind of getting their ideas of what they see Jackson, how they see their district, how they see the city government shaping over the next 4 years. And having those conversations is important as we go forward. And if we're lucky enough to serve Jackson in the capacity of mayor, then having those public conversations with the council members so that everyone knows and their constituents know what our plans are, what our visions are, capitalizing on those agenda review meetings. Johnny and Ross can tell you sometimes it's the race to see if you can get done quicker when you're the vice mayor. What's the time frame? Can I get done in 15 minutes or 5 minutes? But stopping and really talking about what the vision is, not just what's on the agenda items, but how we can come together and how we can build that vision for Jackson to go forward for the next 20 years.
Next question, we'll start with Mr. Conger. We know that we all would like to think that everything is perfect in our city and every other, but it is not always the case. What kind of communicator will you be as a mayor if we face major weather or other community disasters when people expect transparency from a leader?
And that's what they're going to get. They're going to get transparency. We can't run in government trying to hide behind doors and trying to mislead people. We have to communicate, and we have to communicate before it happens on the front end. We can't leave people to assume, because no one, by our human nature, no one in this room, if I leave you to assume anything, is going to assume best case scenario. Our human nature makes us assume worst case scenario. So if we don't communicate and we're not transparent, and we're leaving people to assume and make up their own rumors, and so we have to make sure and utilize that. And that goes from traditional media, social media, to make sure we're having those conversations in communities. One of the things that I'm going to do is establish a communications office that's going to communicate everything that we're going to do before it happens. Controversial decisions made, disasters, everything going on needs to communicate, and people need to know what their government is doing, how their mayor is going to lead the city and the city government into those turbulent times.
Dr. Woods.
I certainly will go forward with an optimistic, positive, and visionary leadership toward transparency. When you've worked with the media before, as a former superintendent of schools, as a former college administrator, things do happen. And one of the things, though, when you think of a catastrophe, or when you think of an emergency, it's amazing, ladies and gentlemen, many times that has been the glue that has brought a community together. That has been, that's when the individuals pushed hard and came forward. Natural disasters have brought people forward. But I think transparency is very important. I think the only thing we run into from time to time on transparency is knowing legally what we can say and what we cannot say. Every now and then the individual said, well, we're going to be transparent, and you talk about personnel. You can't do that. Those are things within the guidelines of the law, within the guidelines of what we will do, which is right with integrity. We will do that. If it's a situation, of course, we don't want to do anything that will impede the process. But however, we want to be transparent, want to be open, want to be optimistic about it. If something is happening, I found too with the media, when you tell it, just tell the whole story then, because it keeps you from having to pick to leaks for other leaks. So that's what we plan to do.
Next question, we'll start with Dr. Woods, and this one comes from one of my colleagues right at this very university. The question is this: Union University has a Center for Racial Reconciliation. What will you as mayor do to foster more and better racial reconciliation in our community?
I think we need to continue to inform the public and advocate for better racial relations. I think the words, and I've looked at this before, and I think the words of Maya Angelou speaks very, very strong with us in her poem, On the Pulse of the Morning. And one of the things she said, and it's amazing, it said that history, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. As a mayor, I will lead with courage. And there are some things that we know that we can address as Jacksonians all together that will move us forward. And so there are some things, of course, historically, we want to do that. The racial, and Union does a great job on that, especially with the King, but with the King celebration. But certainly as mayor, we want to reach out to all races. We will be a diverse city. We will be an inclusive city. But more importantly, we will be a positive, upbeat city with a moral compass that will move Jackson forward. And I think that by approaching race relations in that way, everyone feels a part and everyone feels positive about the movement that we're trying to move the direction that we're trying to move our city in.
Mr. Conger.
So we celebrate our diversity in our city once a year. October, we have a festival. That's great. We have to extend that out for 12 months out of the year. We have to do things like making sure that our boards and commissions that the city appoints reflect what our city looks like and are diverse. Partnering with our colleges and universities, Lane College and Union University right now have that the grants where they work together. I can't remember the name of it, but they work together. They understand each other. They're moving forward together. And so using them because, college kids and high school kids, they're not so entrenched in the way that things have been. They're willing to have those tough conversations. And we have to have those crucial conversations across racial lines, across ethnic lines, across geographical lines in our city, that Highland Parkway divide, and making sure that we're practicing empathy in everything that we do, not compassion, because compassion comes from a selfish spot. We need to practice empathy, putting ourselves in the other person's position when we have those conversations, when we're looking at how we're going to move forward as a city and be diverse. And also, capitalize on the things that we have with the understanding our history and also at the same time forging a path forward. We have our Jackson Remembrance Project that I think is a huge asset to our city that helps us remember where we've come from, knowing how far that we've come, but yet how far we have to go. And we have to really honor things like that.
We'll start with Mr. Conger on this one, and this comes from a public school teacher. Why are you the person we should trust for leadership during times of crisis as every city faces?
Sounds like my mom asked that question. So public school teacher. I think because I believe in being inclusive, I believe in being transparent, and I believe in a pragmatic approach to everything that we do. We're going to face crisis, or we're going to face tough times, but if you're communicating and you're calm and you're pragmatic in your approach, then those crises will end, and then we'll be better off than we started. There's going to be nothing behind a closed door. If we face a crisis, we're going to talk about it, because I'm not going to suffer by myself. If we're in a crisis, I'm going to make sure you're going to suffer with me. But I think that's important. We have to know what's going on in our city. We all have to be bought in. We all have to be sold on what's going on, and we all have to be engaged in what's going on in our city government. So if we're not communicating, we can't just communicate the good stuff. We got to communicate the bad stuff too, so that there's a complete ownership of our city and our government, our communities, and so that we can all know that Jackson is going to be a place where we all can thrive, that every decision that this government is going to make, if I'm elected, is going to be with the best interest of the Jacksonian at heart, making sure that every person in Jackson can benefit. We're going to add to quality of life, and that's in times of disaster and in times of prosper.
Dr. Woods.
I can be trusted to be the leader because of several things. First, by my personal abiding faith. I have been blessed to do many wonderful things, but I truly believe that God has just continues to lead me in that direction. By my faith, we will have the moral compass to be trusted to move the city forward in a fair and equitable manner, a manner that looks in the faces of all of you tonight, as well as the face of every Jacksonian, and to do things fairly and to do things on a moral way. I also think that it's important that we can be trusted is because those who know about hard work, those who know that you have to earn your keep, also is the person that you've been trusted. And then lastly is that, again, that moral compass to believe that there is potential in everyone, and that we want to think the best for everyone realistically, but being optimistic and thinking the best of everyone. Jackson's a great city, and I certainly can be trusted for the city that you support, in the city that you love. You're not going to work, and do we have all the answers? No, but you're not going to work and make decisions that's going to be through the detriment of the citizens that you serve.
This question will go to Dr. Woods first, and you would probably not be surprised that this came from a minister. How would you as mayor work to incorporate faith-based communities to make our city better?
Well, of course, I will continue to work with all of our ministers with the National Day of Prayer. I also would like to just, of course, be an open city to recognize all faiths, because the city of Jackson does well on that, but certainly I would not be opposed at all to establishing an ecumenical committee to where we will hear from ministers, to hear their views on things. And also, I think that we want to continue to make, visit. We just don't only worship at churches doing campaigns. I certainly want to continue to worship, visit churches throughout our city and county to let individuals know of our faith. Not that I'm going to get and preach that to them, but I want to model it. I want to model that I can, that I do believe in a higher power. I do believe in the right thing, and I do believe in doing the right thing. And that's exactly, what I would do to get even greater involvement with the ecclesiastical community of the city of Jackson.
Mr. Conger.
Repeat that question.
All right, the question is, how would you as mayor work with the faith-based community to make our city better?
Hand in hand, I think is the short answer. The long answer is I've been working with our faith-based community for a number of years. My faith drives every decision that I make. I have the pleasure of serving as the district lay leader for the United Methodist Conference here in West Tennessee. Worked with the Code Red Coalition since being on the council, and they are part of the vision going forward on how we can introduce and walk hand in hand with our faith-based community, because that's important. We're diverse. I mean, you look at Jackson, there's a nonprofit on every corner and a church on every corner. And so we know that they are thriving and they are successful and people are attending those churches, and we have to make sure that we're capitalizing on those people and make sure that there is something to offer. A little bit of my story at United Way, we're the only United Way in Tennessee that actively seeks out evangelical nonprofits to partner with, because we know the importance of walking hand in hand with the evangelical community, making sure that we're adding value and we're lifting everyone up in the city of Jackson.
I want to give you, we have time for maybe one more question in which I'll give you each 30 seconds on this. All right, and this is the question. What is one thing that you think could make this community better that won't cost a great deal of money? Scott, we'll start with you.
It's going to sound corny, but unity is it. We have to realize that we are one Jackson, right? We're not north, south, east, west, midtown. The great divides aren't the things that divide us, but they should be the things that unite us, and that knowing that we all love our city. We all are passionate about our city. And if we can get all the same page on how we're going to move our city into the next century, the next millennial, then I think we can do great things for our city.
Dr. Woods.
Yeah, I agree that just unity and racial, just trying to continue to fill the racial divide. And one of the things I said, I think you all, if any of us that remember from the 60s or not, one of the things that was always such great, I think, to bring the people together, we always love to go to the fair. And I just think, I tell you, that West Tennessee State Fair, we can just push more people coming out. I mean, that's it. Everybody can do that. We had a time for that, but I certainly think unity, racial conciliation would work.
That is all the time we have for questions for our mayoral candidates. We now go to their closing statements, and our first statement will be from Scott Conger.
All right. Thank you all for hosting us tonight and asking some great questions. Thank you all for being here. Election Day is a week from today, and so a week from today we will have elected a new mayor. I hope I have the opportunity to serve as your next mayor of Jackson. Like I said, I'm a sixth-generation Jacksonian. I've grown up here. I've planted my roots here. We're going to be here. I want to make sure that our children have the opportunities when they graduate high school and college to stay here and plant roots in Jackson. Those decisions that are made today impact that now for 20 years. So I can guarantee you that every day I will do 4 things. I will wake up and make sure that I'm serving God, that I'm serving my family, that I'm serving the city, and that I have an understanding of how every decision that I make will impact this city 20 years from now. I'm bought in. I have skin in the game. I want to make sure that our city succeeds today and continues to succeed for the next 20 years. I hope I can have your vote on June 18th. Thanks.
Dr. Woods.
Again, I'm Jerry Woods. I'm going to be your mayor. I'm running for mayor to make a good city better. Better support for our schools and public services, better and more livable neighborhoods, and a better and more vibrant economy. I thank each of you tonight for your attention, as well as the ones that are watching on television. We've come a long ways in this campaign, and we're just excited about what the future is going to hold. And historically, individuals have said to me, well, Jerry, there's a possibility that you will be our first African-American mayor. We believe in moving forward. However, while we will be so proud of that, my emphasis in my work is to be not only the first African-American mayor, but the best, most effective mayor that Jackson has ever had. I ask you for your vote in support, and let me ask you to accept the challenge to move Jackson forward together.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's all give a round of applause to Mr. Conger and Dr. Woods. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the choice is yours. For those of you watching our live broadcast, you have through Thursday, June 13th to participate in early voting at the UT Extension Auditorium on North Parkway across from the school district central office. The hours are 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Now, if you wait until Election Day next Tuesday, the 18th, you will be voting in your individual precinct where you are registered. The hours will be from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we invite you to tune in to E-Plus TV6 next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock for live election returns with Steve Bowers and me. Union University and West Tennessee Today are proud to have been your hosts for this forum. Please follow us at West Tennessee Today on Facebook. And remember, when news breaks out, we break in. For our candidates and everyone at E-Plus TV6, this is Steve Beverly saying so long from the great hub city of West Tennessee.